welcome to the DL Gaming Podcast, bringing games both old and new to your backlog, one slightly inappropriate episode at a time. This is our Halloween episode, a little late, but my name is Bobby and I ain't afraid of no ghosts. Joining me today is Emilio.
Back from the dead.
Nice. And Amanda.
Yeah, I've escaped the backrooms of my fears.
Oh boy. Can't wait to hear all about that. All right. First, we're going to start off our Halloween Spooktacular in November episode by talking about the first horror game we ever played. And, you know, I'm pretty old, so I had to kind of dig deep for this one. And I don't know if this is accurate, but I think the first memorable horror game that I ever played was one called Splatterhouse. Now, Splatterhouse is actually a franchise that nobody really remembers or cares about anymore, but
I do, dude. I was there.
Emilio remembers. I knew you would. So back in the 80s, you know, there were a lot of these scary movies like Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers, you know, all that stuff. A lot of 80s slasher movies. So this video game came out and it was only in the arcade and it was called Splatterhouse. And I remember being in the arcade and you'd be in there, you'd be playing whatever. And then you'd see this game called Splatterhouse and it's like Splatterhouse in big red goopy letters, like it's dripping blood. And the game was this guy that looked just like Jason Voorhees with a ski mask and he's just whacking through all these monsters and he's chopping them up. And it was very graphic for a video game, especially around that time. So naturally, it was something that I was very curious about because this is not something that I would ever have the chance to play at home or anywhere else. So I remember playing that, and it's a pretty simple side scroller like type of game when it comes down to it. And this game eventually had a Sega Genesis release. I think it was Splatterhouse 2, and I'll always remember the cover art for that, like the pose of the guy in the mask, and it's one of those images that's just like branded on my brain. Totally remember that one, but it was only on the Sega Genesis. And then I think they had Splatterhouse 3 in the late 90s. And then I didn't realize this, but when I was doing my research, they brought this game back in like 2010. They made a new version of it. Didn't really do too well. It was like a 3D one, but yeah, I don't know. Have you guys heard of Splatterhouse? Any experience with the franchise at all?
Dude, my experience with it is completely different from yours, but I'm familiar with it because I had it on the TurboGrafx 16.
Wow.
And so it was, like you said, it was unlike anything ever that I had seen other than that. So it was kind of like you would just play it for the shock, really. I mean, it was just so intense. And then, nothing else was like it, but I don't remember ever like even getting like 3 levels in. Either it was very difficult or it was just very repetitive. But I remember I would boot it up just get some gore and then go play something else. But there wasn't a lot of things like it.
Now the first one was super simple, and it was I don't know. It could have been the arcade too, because it's very difficult to control a character with like the arcade setup with that clunky joystick and the buttons, and they've been used and abused over the years. Like it's never really that great. And those games are just designed to eat your quarters anyway. But yeah, there was something kind of like Leisure Suit Larry and Sex, like where it was just like you felt like you were playing something you shouldn't be. That's kind of how this game was with violence. Yeah. Like it was just like, it was like Fangoria magazine in a video game. And especially at that time, I mean, now we've got plenty of video games that push the envelope. I mean, we talked about them in recent weeks, like Agony and some of the games Taylor was talking about. But like back then, you didn't really see it that much. But yeah, it made me want to go back and play Splatterhouse because I haven't thought about that game in so long. But I'm sure if I do, I'm going to be over it in like 5 minutes. And I watched like some replays of it, and I was like, oh my God, there's boss fights in that game. I never made it that far. But yeah, good old.
It's going to take you longer to find it and download it than how long you're going to be enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, these days you can play these games right in a web browser now. Ooh. So. Yeah, I don't know, which I occasionally do. Played a little Dr. Mario the other week for about 10 minutes. It was like, all right, I'm good on that.
Yeah.
All right. How about you, Amanda?
Well, do you have before talking about me, do you have a favorite horror game that you can think of?
Favorite horror game?
Mm-hmm.
Like of all time? I
Of
don't know. I've
all
talked about
time.
it. I've talked about it too many times, but I'll say it again. Like I think Fear, that first Fear game, like that was, I really enjoyed that. That might be a game I could go back and play a little bit. And that game certainly has its flaws, but I really like that one.
Nice.
It was too bad that once I got my hands on it, it was already dated. I think that's why.
Yeah. And then
it
the
didn't
second
hook me.
one went in a completely different direction. And by that time, like the whole scariness of it was kind of like blown out. I don't know. Dead Space 2, like for its time, like that was kind of a big deal. Dead Space was just,
Totally.
it did so many different things. It's hard to do a scary game these days. Like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm being cynical, but I feel like it's just all been done.
I think so. I think that they're getting a little creative in how they're adjusting to the modern era of like horror games and things like that too. I'll get into that though. So, kind of moving from my very first horror game that I got into, I remember it being Silent Hill 2 on the PlayStation 2. I tried playing it. I was very, very young and I tried playing it and it was just like, oh, I couldn't even last like 5 minutes. Like such a big scaredy
Because you would
cat.
die or because you couldn't continue?
Oh, it's like any kind of psychological suspense. Like I get in my own head so easily, like just sober, just sitting here staring at a wall, get into my head. I don't need
Yeah.
anything that's going to like nurture that into
Right.
like a scary world. And also growing up in the Midwest with like a shitload of terrifying thunderstorms and like really old, creaky sounding things. I mean, you guys heard that at DLG Con. That was a classic old Midwest like house where, you know, you're going up the stairs and everything's creaking and you're hearing all these crazy weird sounds. So your mind starts getting creative with it and creating like a scarier narrative than what's actually happening. So like I am such a sucker for any kind of scary games and it doesn't take much to scare me. So with Silent Hill 2, they did such a great job with the environment of making it so terrifying that you didn't really need a lot of jump scares. You didn't really need a lot of other things. Like it kind of created this ambiance of this suspenseful, like psychological kind of horror in ways as well too. On top of the other things of like Pyramid Head and the creepy ass people and the creepy story. So I loved Silent Hill though so much, and I'm so grateful that growing up that I had a really close friend that loved to play it. They were not scared at all playing games, so I was able to actually see the entirety of Silent Hill 2. I watched the whole game with my friend playing, and I was just sitting there with like my fingers crossing over my eyes so that way then I could just look and peek and using a blanket. But I watched the whole thing and I loved Silent Hill 2. I'm much better about watching scary games because I love it. I really like horror a lot. I just can't handle it, and I'm so reactive that like I'll drop things and I'll launch a controller at the TV if a spider from Skyrim comes down. And so I need to be very careful, but I would watch them all day long. I feel like that's the one time where I'm like I would rather see it on Twitch is when it's a scary game. And so much of my algorithm is horror games as well too, but I can't play them. One of my favorites, I'm sure, would be Amnesia: The Dark Descent. If I could ever get past the first room. I can't. That's another one where I've watched so much of the game. I've watched almost the entire game online and watch other people play, which is why I think in a weird way it is one of my favorites. I kind of love the idea that like you wake up and you don't know who. It's such a classic trope now, but I think that when Amnesia came out, it was like such a cool concept that you woke up, you had no idea who you were trying to figure out who you were, why you're in this house and why this creature is following you and chasing after you, and you're just like have to hide and you don't have any kind of weapons or any way to defend yourself. I do feel like Amnesia was one of the first to do that kind of style gaming where you have to be very stealthy and sneaky and you have no weapons, no way to protect yourself. And then a lot of games kind of fall in line with that. So
was it the first? I feel like it was the first one, but maybe I'm wrong.
I feel like
It
it
might
was
be,
too.
but it was definitely the first big one. Like it popularized it. And yeah, like you said, it kind of changed horror games after that. We went from things like Fear, like shooters that had a lot of action in them, to games that were like, you know, walking simulators, like maybe light puzzles, but really focusing on the horror and the helplessness. So then we had like Outlast shortly after that, that one Alien game, which was good, but a little too long. But, and that just kind of dominated horror in video games for a very long time.
Totally. Yeah, and I feel like nowadays what's dominating, kind of circling back to what we were talking about of how our horror games kind of making their statement now when things have been so kind of overdone, is I think they're really leaning into a lot of the multiplayer and the use of microphones and your headsets and things like that. Like Phasmophobia, I think, was one of the first to start it. We'll definitely talk about it, but R.E.P.O does a really good job about it. R.E.P.O to me is a really ridiculous one and hilarious, but I loved it. And like there were elements of that that reminded me of Escape from Backrooms when we played that. And one of the ones I'm seeing getting a lot of attention and circling around is Panicore. And these games are really kind of utilizing this like multiplayer mechanic of how important it is to be playing with other people, but how other people can also add into that kind of fear and scare each other or like fuck things up. For example, in like Panicore, when you get on your mic and when you say anything, it alerts the monster to like come to you. So it makes it so much more terrifying. And like Phasmophobia, I think there is a type of ghost or spirit that, and a lot of the times you could sit there and go walking around and being like, oh, Mark Berber, are you here? And then the ghost shows up. So like using the microphone and like these multiplayer mechanics in horror games, I think might, in my opinion, is like where horror games are at right now, is that they're using a lot of this. That's why R.E.P.O was super successful, playing with other people and kind of sharing a scared horror experience instead of traditionally it being so much based on single player and more of these like development of story kind of thing. Now it's a lot of like borderline. I feel like I've seen a lot of like these type of almost extraction type kind of games. Like R.E.P.O is a great example of that. Get in, grab the shit you need to do, escape. That's the whole point. And Phasmophobia is just like that too. Get in, figure out what the ghost is, grab the evidence that you need to get, and then get the fuck out. And so that to me is, I think, maybe where we're at with horror games, but I think R.E.P.O's hilarious. I've seen some really funny content from this game, though, where the mic gets activated. Like, I think one guy was creeping around and then he farted and the monster heard it and chased after him and killed him. Hilarious. Like,
which, by the way, like in the history of humanity, for sure, people have been eaten by fucking saber-toothed tigers from a fart. For sure, that gave up.
Totally, dude.
Totally. It's totally happened.
That's some realistic horror games right there.
What a way to go out.
But I think what all of this has in common from since Amnesia all the way to R.E.P.O and Panicore is hope, like Bobby would said, helplessness. There's no fighting back. And well, I guess we'll get into that later, like when we were flashing our flashlights in the other game. So my first horror game, I didn't. So my first thought was Wizardry, way back in the NES, the dungeon crawler, right?
Wow.
Because it's just so dark, and I remember being so scared. But I don't think the original guy was like, I'm going to make this as scary as possible. That was not. I think he was trying to make an RPG, and that's how it came out. But so I retracted that, and I went with what people are going to probably know is Resident Evil on the PS1, and I'm not saying it's better or anything, but kids these days are not going to understand me and my best friend going to the mall, picking up the CD, taking the bus back to my house, and then putting it in, and then listening to the title screen came up and it said Resident Evil, and it's like not a lot of games even spoke at that time, and you're like already like, ooh, this is going to be good. And he just watched me until we got to, and when I was researching, I brought this up like 4 or 5 times on this, but when the dogs jump through the window is the scariest thing that's ever happened in video games. And as I was looking up for the link for the video, I saw that a lot of people said the first jump scare in video game history. I don't know if it actually is, but multiple people had said that that's it. And why it's so scary is because you're playing in. It's kind of a mix between third person and like this like fixed camera angle. It's really weird, that game, and the controls were really weird too. But in this hallway, you're walking away from the camera, and the dogs jump in from between you, the camera, and your character. So it's kind of like breaking up. You're not even.
Yeah, there's a disassociation between you, the player, and the character in the game. It's almost like you're watching a found footage film or something. It
is. But these fucking dogs jump in through the window between the camera. And so if there was any connection between you and your character, it's been shattered, just like the glass all over the ground, by these fucking zombie dogs. And I don't know. He ran out of the room. He was so scared. And I dropped the controller like I couldn't. It was because we had set ourselves up. It's kind of like, grabbing the popcorn. We were looking for this, and the payoff was exactly what we were looking for. Exactly what we were looking for. So yeah, that was great. Favorite horror game is probably Doom 3, because I forced myself to finish that game. God damn, is it scary? Holy shit! I mean, you have to choose between flashlight or gun. No flashlight gun. It's either see
not even, that game takes place like 100 years in the future or something. They have not invented the flashlight gun, the tactical light on the gun.
Oh my God. So it's either look at the horror or try to stop the horror, but there's no both. And it's so scary. But I forced myself to finish it. I don't know why, because I don't play horror games. I don't like the way they make me feel. So I must have loved it. Or I was trying to prove something to myself. Either way, that's the one. And then the one that's just ridiculous is Amnesia Dark Descent, because I never got out of the first room. Like she said, it's not an exaggeration. Like I could not, your character's mental state is shattering within the first couple minutes. And I'm like, I can't see my arms in this game, which means I can't hold weapons. Like there's nothing I can do. And
it's
so
that
I was
helplessness.
like, nope, not for me. Not for me. Yeah.
I find that so funny that like you and I share that in common as like the exact same gamer experience with that game, dude. Cause I never left the first room. I just couldn't.
Yeah.
What were you saying, Bobby?
It's great for the developers, because look, people paid for it and only played 10 minutes and then 2 minutes. And then when it told people I only played 2 minutes, which made people go and buy it.
Yeah, that's true. That's smart.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that part of the success of that game, I think, was it had changed the expectation when you play a video game is that you're going to be this character, you're going to have a gun, you're going to kill bad guys. And then when you take a game like that, where it takes away all of that, that's such a different experience than what you usually expect from a video game. And of course, the game was done really well too. To this day, I still have not beaten Doom 3. It's kind of like the running joke every year is like, what are our goals next year? Every time we, in January, when we talk about like our gaming goals, I always say I'm going to beat Doom 3. And I slowly am. Like every year I get like a few more levels into it. So I'm working on it. But like
2026,
yeah,
he's got it.
It's on the roadmap. But I made it so far into that game, and then I lost my save, and then I never really recovered after that. But I think a lot of people who were around in gaming at that time remember this. But if you weren't, like, the Doom 3 was a big deal. I mean, everybody was talking about it. So, I mean, at that time, like, id Software was just the king, and like their games were just like tech demos. They were just like, look at this. Look at what next generation gaming looks like. And Doom 3 they did such incredible things with the lighting in that game. And because of that, they were able to make that game work with the darkness and make it so scary. I mean, that's like, what we'll talk about with Phasmophobia. Like a big part of that game is the darkness. Like if you're able to use that effectively, you can make the game incredibly scary.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah.
Let me find. I'm scrambling to find that bumper. I'm looking.
Spooky bumper.
Oh,
it's hiding.
Bumpers
it's
now?
A ghost. Yeah.
We got
a
him
real
somewhere.
podcast over here.
I was in the wrong window.
A lot has happened, Emilio, while you've been dead.
Yeah.
Here we go. We We should have made some special scary bumpers for this week, but
Ooh, I mean, we could with our mouths.
You know what's funny? Discord made their little Halloween sound effects, and they were nice. I like them.
I loved them. Yeah, I thought they were great.
All right, before we talk about the scary games that we've been playing, let's take a step back from video gaming and talk about the scariest experiences we've had in our life. Now, I don't know if I've ever had like a really scary experience, like ghost or supernatural related, but I do remember when I was younger. Well, not that young, maybe a teenager, like. My friends and I, it's so funny, the things that you do when you're young, because you just have so much time. Like, you're like, let's just go find something to do. And what we found to do was go to like old creepy buildings or usually places far off into the woods and snoop around them. Like, like we were ghost hunters, not even considering that this might be private property, that someone might not want us there and like would maybe shoot us or something because this wasn't more of a rural area. So one of the times we did this, we went to this very creepy house, and a lot of people had like told stories about this house. Of course, all of it was made up, but when we got there, when we were snooping around, somebody was home. It was like this older guy, and he came out and was like obviously very curious as to what we were doing. And we're just like, oh, we heard this place was haunted. And this guy totally played into it. He's like,
oh, that's awesome.
Well, it is. Come in. And he invited us into this house. And this guy looked a little weird, I mean, I was young. He was old. All old people look scary and weird when you're young. And he gave us like a tour of the house, and he's just bullshitting, dude. He's just like coming up with all this nonsense. His wife was there, this older lady, and she's like rolling her eyes at all this, and we're just eating it up. We're like, wow. This is before you even had like cameras on cell phones. So we weren't like filming or taking pictures of anything, but we were just like, we got a ghost tour of a house that was not haunted by some crazy guy. And then nothing scary happened. But
were you scared at any point?
Oh yeah. We were like,
oh, okay.
We totally thought like all the stuff he was telling us was true. Like he took us out to the barn, and he didn't kill us, which was amazing. Like
that's great.
That's
what you want.
You think back to that now, and it's like, if I have a kid, I would just like, you're never leaving the house. Like, but I don't know. That's the closest I have. What about you, Amanda?
Yeah, I've got quite a lot coming from the Midwest, but I'm trying to think of like the most maybe interesting one to people is I moved to Detroit in 2009, and that was right around the time right before Detroit declared bankruptcy. So a lot of Detroit was abandoned. A lot of buildings that were built in like 1902, 1920s, these old, beautiful historical buildings were just completely run down, abandoned, and falling apart. There were a lot of schools, a lot of mental institutions, a lot of hospitals that also were abandoned, falling apart. There was the whole Packard plant. There was this entire manufacturing auto plant completely falling apart. The Detroit train station was abandoned and falling apart. So there were lots of moments, like you said, when we were a lot younger, you got all this time. And so it was very common for most people that I went to school with and that I would hang out with to go and do what they would call at the time urban splunking, of like diving into these abandoned buildings and just exploring, seeing what we could find, what kind of cool things we could find or what kind of creepy shit we could find. There's one time I really regret that I didn't go in the Detroit train station, because now they have renovated it and it looks completely different. You can actually go in it now, which is super cool, but it would have been crazy to be able to have a firsthand experience of seeing what it was like before that, and seeing that in between space of when it was thriving in its heyday and what it's transformed to now. That in between spot would have been really cool to see firsthand. But I did get a chance to see an abandoned high school and go through that. And that was super creepy. It's creepy and it's kind of sad because you do get like an insight into like the lives that were there, especially a school. You're like seeing the same kid's name on multiple books or like seeing things of what they were learning. And it was like, damn, like there are kids that could really use going to this school. And it's a shame to see something like that kind of fall to the wayside and, just get abandoned and kind of just what that neglect does to a building and to the opportunities for kids, right? But like it was games, also
there's always a abandoned school level in scary video games, right? Like Silent Hill had one. That other game,
I think
totally.
The whole frozen in time thing is a real thing, like once it's abandoned, that's it. It does not progress anymore. And the same kid's name is always going to be there.
Yeah, which was crazy to see. There was a time where all my friends went to a mental institution in northern Detroit, and I couldn't get out of the car. It was too. They also were like kind of fucking nuts about it. They were like, "Let's go when there's a massive thunderstorm at pitch dark, like midnight, and then we're gonna go around and we're gonna call people's names and we're gonna look for things." And I'm like, no.
Oh,
even being in the car, I feel like
it was scary even waiting in the car because I'm like looking at this big, terrifying, architecturally beautiful building, but like knowing that it's just been abandoned for such a long time and probably honestly the horrors that happened there at that time because back in those days they were doing lobotomies for people that were just fucking sad and like it's crazy, dude. That sounds like a torture house. And so my friends would come back and they were freaked because like apparently one of the it was like a wheelchair had gotten thrown across the building at them and shit. And like they were hearing claw marks on the walls. They were like hearing the scratching and like they kept hearing doors slamming. And I was like, yep, I'm glad I didn't go in there. That sounds like Phasmophobia in real life. And no, thank you.
Wow.
Yeah, you didn't even make it to the first room of that Phasmophobia. That Amnesia.
That's right.
A place
That's
like
right.
That, I don't buy into a lot of like the spooky stuff, but a place like that, like where probably some pretty bad stuff happened. I mean, I don't know. Yeah. There's like a bad energy to those types of places. There's residue
for sure. If you want to know how bad those places are, get some flavor of it. There's an old Geraldo Rivera report of how bad those, and it's basically a horror show. He's in there and he's showing how these.
It's awful.
It's really bad.
Yeah. It's so really terrible. The treatment of people then. Yeah.
Well, they stopped. I don't know. Eventually they got rid of a lot of those places. But there's this old documentary. I watched it in film school. It's got a funny name. I think it's called Titty Cut Follies because it's, I think the name of the building was Titty Cut or that's where like it was located. But it's like this documentary from like the 50s or 60s. And I think it's by Robert Wiseman. He shot a lot of like real cinema verite stuff. Like he just goes in and he puts it on film. And like back in the day, nobody was doing stuff like that. But they show like everything that goes on in this mental facility. Like, and they just show it completely objectively. Like the camera's just running and there's the footage. You know, there's no like talking heads or like interviews and stuff. But it's nuts to think that's how we dealt with people. Like, yeah. And we just like scoop them up off the streets, man. Like, and sad. Today it's just like but
now they're on the streets.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know which one's better.
Unfortunately, they are. But I think that things are just a lot better now, too, because there's a lot more. Like back then, it was just like if you're, freak out because you had like a tough day at work, because work's fucking crazy, dude. And people like freak out all the time. They're just like, oh, this guy's Looney Tunes. Send him to the bin.
Yep.
But yeah. So in all of this urban spelunking, did you ever encounter anything that seemed like a supernatural event?
I truthfully was way too scared to do a ton of urban spelunking. Even in the school, it felt creepy, but I didn't have any kind of supernatural event. I have had lots of supernatural events outside of that, though. One of them was well, I'll ask you, do you want a good ghost story or do you want a scary ghost story?
Well, I don't know. I feel like a scary one would be good, but
no, they're not fun. All right, I'll go with the scary one. So my aunt used to live like on a horse farm in rural Michigan. And so when we went to visit her one time, there was this story of somebody And I don't know, all kinds of rumors. There's always, as you experience, Bobby, like people will take an idea of it and to just like over exaggerate the scariness of it and shit. And so like this story will be like crazy, right? Who knows? I don't know what the hell the story truly is. All I know is that I would be visiting my aunt and playing in the basement, and I straight up, it sounded so, and it's part of why sometimes Phasmophobia really fucking gets to me, because like it'll bring me back to that exact instance where it sounded like somebody was right in my ear going, "Get out." And I was like, what? And nobody is in the basement. Like, it's a small room. Like, it's not even large, or like I can see every part of the basement. And then the lights shut off. And all of a sudden, all these like plastic toys start getting thrown at me. And so I ran right up the stairs screaming. And my aunt was just like, yeah, there's a poltergeist in the basement. And I'm like, she's like, don't be down there by yourself. Yeah. She's like, don't be down there by yourself. And well, I mean, initially she had told me that she thinks that there's a ghost in the basement, but I was like, oh, I'm not scared. And then that happened, and I was like, oh yeah, no, I'm scared. I'm not going down there. So that was not fun. I've definitely had shit thrown at me when there's nobody there. That's not pleasant.
I think a lot more of that stuff happens over on that side of the country because it's just so much older, man. Everything's brand new over here, you know?
Exactly. No, for real. Like there are, and when I was visiting, I think that one of the reasons why Salem, Massachusetts is one of my favorite places is because it's rare to be in places. I'd imagine if you're in Europe, you'd actually feel it a lot, but, or other parts of the world that are really rich in history and old as fuck, then like you'd feel it. But like Salem, Massachusetts to me is like one of the oldest places in the United States in terms of like the development of what we have now. And I mean, it's like the air is thick with like history and like lives and like this feeling. I don't know how else to truly explain it other than something along a similar vein of how when you look at an abandoned mental institution, you're like, yeah, there's a lot of bad energy there. Like you can feel this kind of energy that's like a mix that you're unsure of, where you know some of it's bad and some of it's probably not awful either, but you feel that in Massachusetts especially. Like, and I love that. I think that's cool. But you're right. There's a lot of crazy, spooky stuff that happens out east for sure.
I mean, just when we were there for DLG Con, there's just so much more life there when you're just sitting there. There's like things moving all the time. It's just, you know, trees are creaking and fucking animals are moving around.
Yeah. We were sitting outside here at a table, and like a acorn or something fell off a tree and hit the table, and it was like this loud, it was almost like a gunshot, you know. It was so startling. But yeah, and then squirrels would run by, like you were just always hearing noises, like like things that normally you might interpret as like a person or something, but yeah,
it's completely different out here. There's none of that, you know.
Did
the wind.
Bobby, did you ever at one point run up the stairs when it was dark in the basement? Because that's, I feel, very common out in the East, or maybe other people, where when you're in a basement and it's dark, you run up the stairs because you want to run away from whatever monster might be lurking in the basement.
What do you mean might be? It's definitely down
Probably.
there.
Well, you know, if it's my aunt's place on a horse farm, definitely. Yeah, that dude is going to be... Yeah, it's going to start throwing plastic toys at you.
All right, Emilio, what do you got? What's your scary story?
It's been a long time since I've told this story, but so I was out camping with my dad and his uncles and stuff like that. So we're out, I mean, like in the woods, out in the woods. And it's kind of like a creepy place already. And I went out hunting with my cousin. I'm like 8, and I killed a squirrel, and this is the first thing I ever killed, and I didn't find it. We looked for it, but I couldn't find it. So or he killed it. We shot it at the same time. It fell from the tree. Who knows? Couldn't find it. So fast forward to that night, and there, you know, Uncle Joe is telling fucking camp stories, scary stories, and he tells us the story of the Wendigo. And his version of the Wendigo is that it's a half man, half moose. That's the protector of the forest. And you're not supposed to kill things and not eat them, because he will come and kill you if you do that. And he's, you know, it's a moral of the story that he's trying, but I'm internalizing this, and I'm like, I killed that fucking squirrel, and I didn't eat it, and maybe the Wendigo's gonna come for me, right? Nobody knows this. I'm not talking to anybody about this. Fast smash cut to that night. All the adults are fucking shit faced drunk, and I'm sleeping in my dad's sleeping bag with him, right? And I'm all the way down by his ass, and I'm just like so scared that the Wendigo is gonna kill me. And so he's farting and shit, and I'm fucking trying to like make it through the night, and I cannot sleep. And then, and we're in the trailer. I mean, we're in the camper shell of the truck, so I can pretty much hear everything because it's just aluminum, right? So I start hearing footsteps outside. Oh, by the way, my brother's hallucinating in the cab of the like he's dreaming. He's like, turn off the light, but he's yelling at the moon, right? About being too bright, He was like, turn off the light, and I was like, oh my god, I don't know what's going on, right? So I'm hearing footsteps, and I was like, I have to look. So I crawl out from inside the sleeping bag, and I see horns, and I'm like, oh my god! And then I hear a bang, like what Bobby was saying, like a gunshot, metal, something hitting metal. And so I'm like, I'm dead. It's going to rip the fucking truck apart and kill me. And so I go back down in the sleeping bag, and I just shiver and kind of cry until I fall asleep. And turns out that a herd of cows had come through our camp. And what I had seen was the bull's horns passing through, and one of them had kicked the truck. But what are the chances?
Wow.
What are the chances
wild.
that all of this lined up to terrify some small child? Yeah, there was cow shits and stuff.
I mean, it'd be like that, though, especially when it comes to camping and being out in the woods. And like the Wendigo's such an interesting cryptid, I think. But like the Wendigo's really big in Michigan as well, too. For us, it's like half creature, half man, half deer. I think it kind of adjusts maybe to the region that you're in as well. But I know that there's like I believe it's an Ojibwe Native American up in like the northern Great Lakes region kind of folklore story that the Wendigo was created because as like a punishment for any kind of cannibalism, that like if somebody were to eat another person, they would become a Wendigo then, where they would just walk aimlessly through the woods trying to mimic the sounds of what a human would want to hear to be lured into them so that way then they could eat them. Because that was the thing in Michigan that we were always worried about when we would go camping, is that we would hear our friends in the distance, or like if a mother just had a baby, she might hear a baby crying in the distance, but like that's the Wendigo, don't go deep into the woods. It would always be like the kind of lesson growing up.
Yeah, it's the boogeyman. Last thing. So I took Luna to her first buffet. She had never seen a buffet before, right? And it's like special, right? I told her that we're going to a special place. You can have anything you can see, you can have. She's like, wow. So we walk up, and she's looking at all this meats, and she turns up to me. She goes, Dad, can people eat people in front of like everybody? And I'm like...
Now you got to tell her only if you want to become a Wendigo.
yeah. It was awkward. All right, where are we at?
I read about 2 years ago, I read Pet Cemetery, which is a really good book. But in the book, there's this entire part with a Wendigo that, of course, is not in the movie. That was really interesting. But... yeah, that's how it always is, right? They never get everything. All right, let's talk about the games that we played. So a couple of us, hold on, time out. We got a bumper, folks.
Ooh.
Bam. Nothing like a late bumper.
Especially when you bring attention to it and talk about it. It's great.
All right. We played Phasmophobia the other night, and I love checking in with this game. Like, I love checking in with it once a year. I don't need to be playing this game all the time, but once a year is good. We dip into it. We have some fun. We see all the progress that they've made, and it's a good time. They've finally fixed the inventory system. So My gripe with this game has always been a confusing inventory system. If you don't know what Phasmophobia is, you're a bunch of ghost hunters. You join up with your friends. You go on a mission where you try to lure out a ghost and take pictures of it, video, whatever. And then you try to get out before the ghost kills you. And there's other objectives you have to complete as well. Everything's super dark. You can't see anything. But part of doing this is buying gear, bringing it along with you, using that gear and getting out with it so you don't have to spend money to replace it. And that's always been incredibly confusing. And like every time I load into a game, I'm just like, okay, who's bringing what? I don't understand. How do I get the flashlight in here? So I bring it on the truck. Like I never understood it. The way that they've redone the inventory system, so much better now. Like you can actually understand like who's contributing what all you have, and if you're in a good position to go on this next mission. So super happy about that. This game was not as scary as the last few times I played it. And I don't know if it's because I'm getting better at the game and more comfortable with it, or I just, over time I've just kind of become inured to the scariness of it all. Like, I don't know. How was it for you, Amanda? Because I know you've been playing it on and off throughout the years like me. What was it scary when we played?
I think it normally Phasmophobia is so terrifying to me that like I feel like I really struggle and I need somebody like Nick to like really hold my hand, since he knows all the ins and outs and is just like, yeah, and he's very like Papa Bear about it too, like, oh yeah, come on over here, like let me help you with it. And then I always feel better and played it. But like this time we all kind of went in and just, I think, tried our best to tone down the fears, especially Christian as well. But I feel like it was not as scary as I was expecting going into it. Part of it, truthfully, though, might be that there's been a lot of intense moments. I've been playing so much Arc Raiders. There's been a lot of intense moments there. So maybe my like blood pressure is just normal at being at an elevated state. I think part of it is I've been playing a lot more scary games the last few days as well, too. So maybe I'm getting desensitized to it. And part of me is kind of in this like phase of like, fuck it, let's just go in guns blazing, so to say, of like a mentality, because you don't have guns in Phasmophobia. That'd be great. But well, not that I would do anything to the ghost, but I'm not sure if, like, I feel especially the last one with the church where there was the chick that had the singing, like that got me. Like I was getting really freaked out with that one.
I think we were getting there. So the first two missions that we had done were super easy. There was a small house. It was easy mode. We were having trouble getting the ghost to come out. The ghosts were a little shy. I was just like, let's go. Come on, But then, when we went to that last one that was in that huge level, then I was like, this one's actually going to be a little more of a challenge and a little more scary. But man, I cannot wait. I'm like level 11 in that game. They redid the leveling system. So now you have to be certain levels to get certain equipment. Maybe it was always like that, but they've changed it in such a way where I don't have access to the same gear I did before. That, and like you said, we were always playing with Nick, who just could get everything. And I cannot wait till like I can reach a high enough level to like get a tripod or something, or a better flashlight, because the gear we are working with, like the thing that detects the temperature, it's like one of those old school thermometers. I'm like, I can't even see this. It's too dark. This is like totally useless. But I'm getting close. I think you get the level 2 flashlight at 18. So I'm getting there, but the game's going to be a lot. I don't know if it's going to be easier because then you start playing the more challenging levels, but I think it's going to be a lot more enjoyable once I hit that mark.
True. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. I felt like it was scary, but I don't feel like it was as scary as what Emilio and I played.
Really? Escape the Backrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot going on with this game. So first of all, the whole concept of the Backrooms I've always felt was scary, right? These endless hallways of nothingness that for no reason, right? There's nothing. There's no there's not even boxes. It's just back there. And just the concept of it is scary. And so when I first heard of it, I went and checked out some YouTube videos and I was like, yeah, that whole concept's crazy. So of course, video games came following. and I think there's been a lot of bad ones, but this one was rated pretty well. It's like very good, I think, or yeah. And so I think it's at like 80% or 90%. Anyway, it was like $9, and it's that creepy yellow dingy original Backrooms, or at least what I first saw. That was the first level, and I'm just like, this is gonna be so fucking scary. Like this is, but I'm gonna force myself for the podcast to do this. And I was with Amanda, and we're both big pussies when it comes to this stuff.
Yes.
And for me, I mean, I don't know if you can make a whole game out of that first level, but that first level was kind of like what I was looking for, because it's a maze of this yellow dingy back rooms, and there's a thing in there with you, and it's kind of like this shadowy amorphous thing, kind of like the rooms are amorphous, and so you just don't you don't know what the fuck's going on, and your eye is trained to just look for anything that isn't those two things. And so that'll, you'll be like, oh, here's a door. A door, Amanda, a door. There's a door here. And so we go to the door, and we're so happy because maybe that means that something is going to get us out of it. But of course, inside that door was only a key. Now we got to go find where the fucking key goes, or whatever it was. And so that first level was, first of all, we're just settling into the game. But I was pretty scared during that whole, and plus I died instantly every time. And then Amanda had to carry the torch almost every level. I would be, because usually I'm in the front, and then I just get killed, and then she would finish the whole game. So really, she was my hero this whole time.
Well, you were kind of my hero too, dude, because you were like the bait. I was like, if I know what the monster looks like or what he's trying to do, like that's going to help me out a lot trying to navigate this. And so like I appreciated you taking one for the team every single level. This game is 5 levels, and it seems to be in a setting where like you're in a testing facility is kind of what I was gathering, because there was one part where we went into a room behind the back doors where you're looking at the back doors like as if you're looking at some interrogation room, and it's like the one-way glass kind of thing, and there's all of these computers that have all these breakdowns and files of what the different rooms are, and they did such a good job, I think, too, with like again creating this environment. I think that is like that is probably, in my opinion, one of the most important things of a horror game, is if you get the environment right and the immersion right, you're going to have a successful horror game for sure. And this one did such a good job in that like you couldn't get into the computers, so you're looking around for a password, and I'm like, oh, I bet there's a sticky note somewhere with the fucking password on it. And then sure enough, you found a sticky note, and the password was, "It heard you." Just that like little thing too, where you're like, it reminds you like there's a thing, a monster, an amorphous thing here, and it's always watching and it's always there. Like that was like super creepy and great. Like, so they did such a good job with the creepiness of that. And yeah, that first level I think was just absolutely horrifying, and part of it is because we're settling in to the game, but also too like I got a little glimpse of that monster in the first level, and I still have no idea what that monster actually looks like. Yeah. But I saw its claw, and like it looked like the claw looked like if Salad Fingers was dripped in oil. Like it was creepy. And so Salad Fingers, for maybe people too young to know what it is some old like browser kind of based video of this creepy dude that's like in a deep army green color, who's got these long weird like pickle looking fingers, and he's just like so unhinged. And look it up on YouTube, it's creepy. He'll thank me later for horror season. But anyway, the one I thought was really the scariest, that we have actually quite a few clips of on Twitch if anybody wants to watch them, is the next level where you're in a garage, and it's just you're hearing all of the weird clinking and clacking of like a old garage, and like everything is so dark, it's so pitch dark. And like, yeah, we had to find like 4 keys to unlock a door, and if you turned around a corner, there was like this monster that just looked like He was so lumpy. He's had all these lumps and was gray, and then had this massive zipper down his whole face, and then it was just all teeth. And he was terrifying. And if he killed you, he would turn into you and walk around and go, "Hello, hey there. Are you there?" Like, and it sounded like a person, but it also, it's not a fucking person. They had recommended that you show your badge to each other to prove that like you're a person and not like the monster. And so
I don't think it's a mechanic at all. I think they just put that in there to fucking make you think that you have some sort of agency, but it's going to eat you.
Exactly.
You just die with your badge out.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I think we literally have a clip of that actually, where Emilio's like, "Badge him, just badge him, just badge him," and then Emilio dies, like because he held up his badge and the guy ate him.
Yeah, it does nothing.
Does nothing. It was scary, but like as you go deeper into this garage, it just gets so pitch black, and it was fine. There was one level though where like the monster ain't shit. It was the Karen dog. There was like this creepy looking dog with a human head that had like an emo haircut, and like it would just sound like it was like it was stupid.
It's a very strange one. Yeah,
and all you did was like flash a flashlight in its eyes, and it got blinded, and it just sounded like a yelping dog and ran away. And like that's the monster, is you just had to keep a flashlight on. And it's like, this place is dark as shit. I'm keeping my flashlight out all the time anyway. So really the only way that this thing would fuck you up is if it came from behind and got you from behind, which I think the tactic to a lot of these kind of games is you have somebody going forward and you have somebody watching your six, and then you're always fucking covered, like, and you're fine. And that's how you just approach it. But I made it to the 5th level because Emilio had to leave, and the 4th level, and I made it through because we got pretty far. That one was more puzzly, which was kind of nice. You had to like figure out, they had a room where it was like you had to match the vending machines to how many items were in each one, and that was cool. And then I had to evade a security camera, and that was it. But the 5th level I just couldn't get through because you were in a really creepy old hotel, and it was endless hallways and rooms in the hotel, and they had every single monster from all the previous levels in there too. So like I would be running, and then I would hear, "Hello, are you there?" And I'd open up the door, and it was the zipper face monster. And then like behind, as I died, I saw behind me was creepy ass Karen dog. And then I could see even like the little fingers like around the corner. And I'm like, dude, I can't handle this level. No way.
Do you think it was the last level?
I'm pretty sure it was. I could have sworn Escape the Backrooms is 5 levels. I thought so. Yeah, and that's the 5th level. Yeah, that was very hard. And you had to find an entire arrangement of hotel room keys to make all the hotel boxes like the same number in order to unlock and leave. So it was like challenging as shit. And they threw it's really quite
and you
the
were
finale.
by yourself at that point, right?
Yeah, I was like, I can't do this by myself. I need my bait. I need to know where that monster is, so that way then he could die.
How many people can play this game? I didn't realize it was co-op.
I think 4.
Wow. Okay.
Let me double
By
check
the end,
that.
I'm pretty sure like I was a master baiter. My favorite point was when we had finished the parking garage, and we go to the 3rd one, and the first room of the 3rd level is like a brick basement, and Amanda's going through the shelves, and she's looking at stuff. She's picking up items, and she's talking, and she's like, "Man, I'm so glad that we're in a basement, because like the most scary thing is for me is a parking garage, and I'm just glad that we got away from a parking garage. I don't care how scary this basement is." And while she's talking, I had already opened up the door, and I'm looking at a parking garage. Like the 3rd level is a parking garage too. But she's talking about how glad she is. And I was like, wait till she sees this. And she goes, "Oh, fuck, it's still a parking garage."
Yeah.
That was probably the scariest one. The 3rd
level. Yeah, I think so
level.
too. Because that's when it got super dark, and it
your
almost
flashlight,
felt like your flashlight didn't do shit.
No,
and it felt
shone
like
darkness.
Yeah, and it felt like there were multiple monsters. I can't remember. I don't know, but it was crazy how quick the monster was on the same level as you. And it was just like, buddy, it took me a second to run here, and now you're right around the corner when I just ran from you upstairs. Like, that's weird. And they had all these like little doors, because the monsters can't come through closed doors. So that was kind of your way to get away from them. But on the 3rd level, some of those doors weren't fucking rooms. You would open it up and it would look like a room, but it wasn't big enough to close the door behind you. So you would open it, run in, try to close the door, and you didn't. And when you turned around, the monster was there eating you. And that shit was terrifying.
Yep.
And yeah, I did not like that one. But it was funny. We had a running theme where it was like, man, we're trying so hard to get out of this level so we could go to a worse level.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like basically what you're doing. Another interesting thing about that level was that it was 3.5 levels deep of like, you know, going down. But the exit wasn't on the third level like you would think, or the 3.5. It was on the second.
Mm-hmm.
So like, you know, we died over and over and over on the third level down, thinking that that's how games work. But nope, it was on the second. So I was like, let's just go over there. So you wouldn't think, but it was much better development than it would have been had it been where we thought it should be. You know what I mean? Because who knows? It shouldn't make sense. It's all fucking chaos. And
I think the devs were really smart with this game. I feel like Emilio, we really only scratched the complete surface. Like there's so much more to this game, I think, than we have. And I'm probably not going to dive into it because it was fucking scary.
Yeah.
And we did it, and that's good enough for me.
I've played scarier things. I think we both have, but it was fun. It was fun.
It was
especially
fun
for
and scary, yeah. And if anybody wants to watch it, we do have the whole stream up on Twitch. And so you can watch the whole thing if you want, or just watch some funny clips that Christian took while we were playing, because it was a fun time.
Nice.
Oh, yeah.
I will try to clip that in the show notes, or link it in the show notes so you can click right on it. All right, folks, we're about done here, but before we do...
Yes, Bobby?
That was the bumper playing. I was giving it a
pause.
Shit. Let's check in with our community. We don't have any listener questions or corrections this week, but we do want to shout out Truthbringer, our executive producer, supporting us. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. And Amanda, what are we plugging this week?
This week, I am going to try my best to do a lot more streaming using DLG. So there are certain games where I want to stream some Arc Raiders. I really have been wanting to play Karma, the Dark World. It's also another pretty creepy game, much more of a walking simulator puzzle. Just kind of an interesting game where you're this... Like, think of the Minority Report. Like, you are this investigator who is going inside the minds of people from their past lives of crimes that they've committed to find where that is and find where this monster is lurking into their psyche and try to solve these like mental break kind of murders that are happening from some creature going into people's minds. So it's really crazy, really cool and interesting game, but I feel like it's going to take a lot of time and like me to really dive in and chew it up in a way and like figure it out. And so I want to play that, and I haven't yet, and I think it'd be really cool to stream as well because it's kind of like we're all watching it together. So yeah, and I might do some painting in real life too and stream that. Why not? I don't know. But either way, I'm selfishly plugging myself that I'm going to be streaming this week with DLG.
If we're doing selfish plugs, if you play Magic the Gathering, come buy some cards for me. I got a lot of Avatar The Last Airbender coming. So I should have a lot of that in stock once it goes live.
What's that store called?
Loco Game Store on TCG Player. LOCO Game Store on TCG Player.
Awesome.
Yep. Bobby?
All right. Well, my name is Bobby, and joining us today was Amanda and Emilio. Be sure to tune in next week because we're going to be playing Far, Far West. That is the robot Western co-op shooter with voodoo and magic. A lot going on there. Is it good? We'll find out. Playing us out this week, we've got a classic. We're going to be playing the theme for The Witch from the original Left 4 Dead.
Bye, everybody.
Oh man, I remember this.
Same.
Not
Truly
a good
terrifying, actually. Yeah, that was a scary sound.